Yes.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us for our third Tele-Town Hall. Whether you're joining us for the first time or you're returning a second or third time, welcome. Our country is navigating through an incredibly uncertain period. You undoubtedly have many questions and concerns right now, and I want to be sure that you and your families have the information and support you need to stay healthy and safe. My office has been assisting constituents day and night to get them connected with resources they need to stay on their feet. We've been working with the Food and Drug Administration and Health and Human Services to advance potentially game-changing technology to improve COVID-19 testing. We've been advancing local production of personal protective equipment, and we've been connecting healthcare providers with PPE manufacturers. My office has been able to work with the Department of State to help get nearly 100 constituents who had been stranded abroad back to the United States. So please call us at 978-459-0101 if you need assistance in any way. We are living through unprecedented times. We've passed 200,000 diagnosed cases of COVID-19 nationwide, including nearly 8,000 in Massachusetts. This morning, we received the latest unemployment figures. A record-breaking 6.6 million people filed for unemployment, about twice the number from just a week before. We must remain mindful that every single one of us has an urgent responsibility to lessen the impact of this crisis. All of the life adjustments we've been asked to make, including social distancing, washing our hands frequently, disinfecting our surfaces, and staying home, will continue to flatten the curve and ensure that our healthcare workers can meet the surge of patients and ultimately save lives. Just last week, hours after our second Tele-Town Hall, I took safety precautions myself by driving down to Washington rather than flying to vote on the third emergency funding package. My team, both here in Massachusetts and in Washington, have been teleworking for 3 weeks, adhering to social distance protocols and mitigating the spread of this virus. Like you, I have made a lot of changes at home and at work. My 2 young daughters are home from elementary school until at least May 4th. My husband and I are working from home, sometimes even sharing an office. We're doing our best to keep everyone occupied, learning, respectful, and upbeat. But it's challenging. We all miss seeing our loved ones. We miss having dinner with our friends and organizing play dates for our kids. This weekend, my youngest daughter, Caroline, will turn 6, and we're literally orchestrating a family Zoom call for when she blows out her candles. These are difficult adjustments, and staying connected to our friends and family is so important for our mental health. We can and we will get through this together. As we continue to face this crisis head-on, everything we do should give each other confidence that we will stick by one another through thick and through thin. Okay, before we meet our panelists of the night, I'll briefly recap what Congress has done so far. On March 6th, we enacted the first emergency supplemental package. It included our first big burst of aid to support our healthcare providers and state and local health boards, as well as investment in research for a vaccine. Money from that $8.3 billion package is working its way into our communities now. On March 14th, we enacted a second, more comprehensive package, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. It provided emergency leave to workers, free coronavirus testing, and helped ramp up unemployment compensation. It also supported food aid for children who are out of school due to coronavirus and need access to a nutritious breakfast and lunch. It provided $300 million to our food banks so that those in need won't go hungry, and $250 million for Meals on Wheels, a great program that I saw up close earlier this year when I helped deliver warm meals to our seniors in Hudson. Last Friday, we passed and the President signed into law the $2.2 trillion relief package, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, otherwise known as CARES. This is the largest relief package ever passed by Congress, and it will send direct cash payments to more than 150 million households, establish loan and grant programs for businesses to help them maintain payroll and survive this downturn. In particular, It includes $350 billion for a new paycheck protection program under the Small Business Administration. It will offer loans of up to $10 million for small businesses and nonprofits to continue paying their employees. Additionally, the first 8 weeks of payroll loans can be forgiven. The package also includes $10 billion for SBA emergency grants for up to $10,000 to provide immediate relief for small business operating costs. And it provides $17 billion for standard SBA business operating loans, but with a promise that no payments will be due for at least 6 months. This aid is available for both current borrowers as well as new borrowers of programs like the SBA's 504-7A micro loan program. It also expands and extends unemployment. Specifically, it adds $600 to unemployment insurance for everyone who receives state unemployment benefits. It waives the waiting week so that those in need can get help straight away. It adds 13 weeks of unemployment for those who have exhausted their state unemployment benefits. And it makes self-employed and gig economy workers eligible for unemployment insurance benefits under a new federally funded program. The last big part I'll flag is the bill's $100 billion for a health care Marshall Plan. This is geared toward ensuring that healthcare providers are armed with everything they need to take care of those who fall ill. I'm sure we'll get into the Marshall Plan a bit more later, but now I'd like to welcome our guest, President and CEO of Emerson Hospital, Christine Schuster, who will give us insight into the virus, our response, and safety protocols. Thank you for being with us today, Christine.
Thanks so much for having me today, Congresswoman Trahan. And for all of us at Emerson, a heartfelt thank you to you and your team, Emily, Wu, and David, for all the work you've done to help us over the past month. Lori, on a good day, you are engaged and supportive of our community. During this national crisis, you fought for all hospitals to get the needed supplies and the equipment that we need to care for our community. You're always checking in on us, asking how we're doing, when I know your plate is full. In fact, one of the times we talked, you were driving back from Washington and clearly had a very long day. But before your day ended, you wanted to check on Emerson. There's not anyone else that I would rather have representing us at this challenging time. For those of you on the call who don't know me, I'm a nurse and I've been the president and CEO of Emerson Hospital for the past 15 years. It is a wonderful hospital where everyone is pulling together during this pandemic. We have outstanding physicians and dedicated, compassionate staff who are working 24/7 to ensure that we have what we need to care for our community during this crisis. And I look forward to answering your questions tonight. Back to you, Congresswoman.
Thank you. Thank you, Christine. We are so fortunate to have such talented, experienced administrators at the helm of our community hospitals. And without further delay, let's get to your questions. As many of you already know who have attended multiple Tele-Town halls, we receive so many questions through our submission portal, and we do our best to select questions that are representative of the concerns we receive, and we'll answer as many as we possibly can. So the first question is from Jean R. from Methuen, who wants to know, quote, I'm interested in hearing how the stimulus checks will be issued and when they will be issued. So I'll take this one, Christine. Jean's question seems to be at the forefront of everyone's mind. What comes next? So the CARES Act includes direct cash payments called recovery rebates, $1,200 for each adult and $500 for each dependent child. Those who earn $75,000 or below will get the full rebate, but the rebate is incrementally reduced for those who earn more than $75,000 or couples who file jointly and earn more than $150,000. The incremental reduction means that those who earn more than $99,000 will receive no recovery rebate, and similarly, couples who file taxes jointly and earn more than $198,000 will also be ineligible for the rebate. So just yesterday, we got news that the Treasury and IRS will make about 60 million payments to Americans through direct deposit in mid-April. The checks will be issued in reverse adjusted gross income order, so those who earn the least will get their rebates first. For most taxpayers, no action is necessary. For Social Security beneficiaries who do not file returns, the Treasury and the IRS also announced yesterday evening that these beneficiaries will not need to file a simple tax return to receive their rebate. Recipients will receive their rebate just as they would their Social Security benefits. For all other taxpayers who do not file returns, the IRS expects to release a simple tax return, which will contain only a few questions, including your name, Social Security number, dependents, and deposit information. The IRS will use your 2018 tax filing information or your 2019 tax filing information for those of you who have already done your taxes this year to determine your payment amount. The recovery rebate will be deposited directly into the same banking account reflected on your tax return. You can find more detailed information by checking our website or visiting irs.gov/coronavirus, which will have the latest information. Jean, I hope that answers your question. Christine, this next one is definitely for you. Jessica P. writes, is it possible to get tested if you think you have a mild case of the virus? It's hard to know whether you're able to support others, like picking up groceries, without knowing if you have the virus or not. I hear many people have mild symptoms and common symptoms like headaches or a dry cough. It's just hard to know what's allergies and what's serious.
So that's a great question, Jessica, and one that is asked frequently. It is really hard to know if you're experiencing spring allergies, especially because a lot of the trees are budding right now, or if what you're experiencing is something more serious. The best thing that you can do if you have any kind of symptoms at all is to call your primary care physician. Now, they're going to ask you lots of questions about how you're feeling. They may even ask you to take your temperature, and they may ask you to have a telehealth visit with them. Or they may ask you to come in to be examined in person or to have testing. But the best thing that you can do if you feel fine and you're worried and you need to help someone, but you're really not having any true symptoms, is to practice the social distancing. And the single most important thing is to wash your hands frequently with soap and water. That's the best way to combat this virus. If you have to cough or sneeze, to do so into your elbow, and make sure that you're using sanitizer like Purell if soap and water is not available. And I know it's hard, but try not to touch your hands to your face, your nose, or your eyes. And, if possible, try to use a grocery service where they practice social distancing if you have to go into the store. Or many places now you're able to place an order online and to pick it up or to have it delivered to your home. So there's definitely options where you can help those that you would like to, but you don't have to put yourself in harm's way.
Great. Thank you, Christine. As a follow-up to that, Lisa W. from North Chelmsford wonders, is there a plan for community testing, like drive-through testing? And what is the accuracy of the current tests being admitted?
So many of us have great plans to hold up community testing centers, and they range from tents to garages that were cleaned out and refurbished. Unfortunately, it's very difficult for us to have that kind of testing because there is a limited number of test kits available at this time. So there is a system whereby if you're having symptoms, you talk to your physician that we can test you, but at this moment there isn't community-wide testing available in our community. It really depends on, from a symptom perspective, it depends on when your symptoms show whether you'll need a test or not. We do find that the test is generally pretty accurate, but it depends on when in the cycle of, if you have COVID-19, you take your test. So you may be exposed and take a test, and it may be negative. And then if you had taken the test 2 days later after the virus had a chance to work its way through your body, it may be positive. So test timing is tricky, and it's really important. And that's why we recommend following some of the practices I outlined with the last question, just to protect yourself. There is some new technology that's under development, which hopefully will be released soon, where it will allow us to take a swab or a urine test and get results under 10 minutes. And we hope that those will be able to be mass-produced so that we can administer more of those tests. So more to follow on that one.
Great. Thank you, Christine. I'll take this next one. It's from Chandra R. in Andover. She wants to know, how can small businesses apply for a loan from both the federal and state governments? So it's a great question, Chandra, and I'll dive right into the details because we've taken this question from many of our constituents. We'll tackle the state program first. On March 16th, the state announced a $10 million fund under the Massachusetts Growth Capital Fund, MGGF. It was set up to lend up to $75,000 to small businesses with no payments for the first 6 months. However, that program is no longer accepting applications. Just a couple days after the MGCF program's launch, the Federal Small Business Administration issued a disaster declaration for the Commonwealth. And that declaration opened the door to SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loans, also known as EIDLs. These are loans direct from the SBA for up to $2 million. For an EIDL, the interest rate for small businesses is 3.75% and just 2.75% for nonprofits. So now if you go to the Mass Growth Capital Fund website, it will tell you to apply for an EIDL. That way there's no confusion. The process to apply for an EIDL is fairly simple. It's all done online. You go to the SBA's coronavirus website, which is COVID19 Relief.sba.gov. Again, it's COVID19 Relief.sba.gov. That will bring up the loan application. From there, you'll be asked a series of questions like, is the applicant a business with fewer than 500 employees? Is the applicant a nonprofit? Is it a franchise, et cetera? What were the applicant's gross revenue numbers during 2019? And you work your way through the form and then you submit it. One important change that the CARES Act made to this program is that now applicants are eligible for a $10,000 advance, and that borrower would not be required to repay that advance. That advance is intended to be available within 3 days of filing the application. The SBA stood the system up on Monday, so early filers should begin receiving this aid immediately. Alternatively, a small business can apply for a Paycheck Protection Program loan. This is a brand new offering that was created in the CARES Act. The PPP is a different product from the EIDL in a number of ways. First, the PPP isn't a direct loan from the SBA. You must apply through an SBA certified lender. Northmark Bank, for example, is a certified lender. They have a branch in Andover. Second, the PPP offers loan forgiveness for the first 8 weeks of payroll. That isn't an option for EIDL. I suspect in many cases that forgiveness of 8 weeks of payroll will greatly outweigh the benefits of the $10,000 EIDL grant. But it's your preference, of course. Third, the PPP is specifically designed to address payroll, including employee salaries, paid sick and medical leave, and insurance premiums, as well as mortgage interest, rent, and utility payments. That's all. The EIDL can be used for payroll needs as well as other bills that can't be paid because of the COVID-19 outbreak. And fourth, the maximum EIDL loan is $2 million, but the maximum loan under the Paycheck Protection Program is $10 million. And in case you're wondering, yes, you can apply for both an EIDL and a PPP. Okay, that was super detailed. Christine, let's get back to you. John C. from Concord asks, what is the state of our local healthcare system for dealing with COVID-19, and what is the near-term outlook? Are they at or beyond capacity?
So, John, you're asking all the right questions. I think I'd be wondering, if I was sitting at home, boy, if I get sick, my local hospital ready to care for me? And if they're full, where would I go? So for the last 26 days, just about every hospital in the state, including Emerson and all the hospitals in our region, have held up what we call incident command centers. And we've appointed an incident commander, which in my case is Eric Staffney, our Chief Operating Officer, and we have a fabulous team backing up the incident commander and planning for best and worst case scenarios. So we've looked at things like, when will the surge in hospitalizations come? And so we're working very closely with our governor and hospitals throughout the state. And it looks like the prediction as of today is that the surge in hospitalizations will come somewhere between April 10th and April 17th. And so we've been planning for, in our case, how will we open up a second intensive care unit? We typically have one. Now we have two, so that we're able to care for sick patients. We didn't have enough ventilators to staff that unit, and thanks to Congresswoman Trahan, I reached out one day and said, we need more ventilators, and the next day I had them delivered to my loading dock. And so working together, both at home and in Washington, we've been able to secure much of the supplies and the equipment that we need to care for the patients in the community. To be honest, I've worked very closely with all of the CEOs in our region, from Neshoba Valley Hospital right up through southern New Hampshire. And so we're working together as a unit so that if one hospital gets filled or doesn't have an ICU bed or has an extra vent, that we can all work together to care for this region. And that's vitally important. We don't know how this is going to shake out, but we have good, solid plans to be able to be nimble and flexible as the surge comes. Because as many of you know, Middlesex County has the second highest number of COVID-19 patients and positives. So we're expecting that we will see an influx of patients. I have to say, the other thing that I'm really moved to tears with is how great and wonderful our community has been. And so for all of you on the call, thank you so very much for whatever you've done. Some people have made donations. Many people have made masks, donated gowns. I keep wondering what everyone's doing with N95 masks in their basement, but I'm glad that they're there and that you're sharing them with us. Many people have joined GoFundMe groups that have supplied nourishment for our staff. Our staff are on the front lines, and my team's biggest concern is keeping them safe so they can keep the patients safe. And so we're investing all of those things that you've done in the frontline staff to keep them ready when the surge hits. So thank you, everyone. And again, thank you, Congresswoman, for being there when we needed you the most.
You bet. And, we say every time we convene these calls that everything that we do in terms of staying at home and practicing those social distancing techniques is all to prevent the surge, right? And we've already seen this week, right? Shipments are finally arriving of much needed PPE at the scale that we need to supply, our hospitals across the Commonwealth. And that would not have been done if people ignored the advisory and didn't, stay home and be disciplined in our approach. So it is so true. We all have a role to play. And you pointing out what's happening on the community level, it's heartwarming to see how communities rally around their workers and their families, their seniors, certainly everybody who's on the front line. So thank you. Susan O. of North Chelmsford writes to us with a question. I have 3 daughters who are RNs working in ICUs, plus a paramedic firefighter. I'm so concerned they will be infected by the virus or bring it home to their families. Healthcare workers must be protected at their workplace, but they do not have the protection by way of masks, gowns, etc. Is the government working diligently on getting supplies to these frontline workers? So, Susan, let me first ask you to pass along my deep gratitude to your daughters. Our healthcare workers and our first responders report to battle every day, and our country is counting on their heroism to pull us through. My sister Bria is a nurse, as are so many of my closest friends, and I have the same worries as you. Each day, brave and dedicated doctors, nurses, physician assistants, EMTs, they show up to work on the front lines, and they deserve to be at the front of the line for personal protective equipment. As Christine mentioned, we exchange daily texts and phone calls on this very topic. What I have found most infuriating is that in the midst of a global pandemic, our healthcare system has not received the protection that they need to protect us. We've seen an unconscionable shortage in PPE like N95 masks, gloves, and gowns that our healthcare workers need when testing and treating patients. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts received only 10% of PPE requested from the Strategic National Stockpile and 17% of its second request. That's just unacceptable. When hospitals, state, and local officials are unable to reliably access PPE, it undermines our response to the coronavirus pandemic. The CARES Act provides funding to rapidly increase our personal protective equipment manufacturing capacity. Companies like New Balance are stepping up to fill the void and meet the demand for critical items like masks. But the truth is, we should have never let our manufacturing base wither to the point that we were so unprepared to produce PPE and other critical medical supplies. The CARES Act, provides $1 billion for COVID-19 related production needs under the Defense Production Act. That's a law from 1950 designed to secure our defense supply chain. We're going to use DPA to help inoculate our nation against this PPE supply shock. The bill also provides $100 billion for the Public Health and Social Services Emergency Fund, and this will provide grants to our healthcare providers so that they can have all the supplies they need. It also invests almost $400 million in telehealth programs that Christine described earlier so that health services can be delivered remotely without the risk of transmission. And there is $16 billion for the CDC's national stockpile to procure and deploy PPE and other items that your brave daughters deserve. Our aim is to ensure that healthcare workers at every hospital, every healthcare center, and every neighborhood clinic, as well as every first responder, has the resources needed to combat COVID-19. People like your daughters are exactly why I advocated for these funds in the CARES Act, and why I'll push for even greater resources for them until we beat this pandemic. I also really regret that it has taken this crisis to awaken more people to the need for universal health care. We've been beating this drum for universal coverage for quite some time. As important as Obamacare was, it's clear that it doesn't go far enough, and now we have people who are out of work with not enough income to cover the cost of maintaining their health care coverage. We weren't able to hold on to a provision in the CARES Act that would have covered COBRA premiums, for example. It was dropped in our negotiations with the Senate, and I believe that should be restored in the next package. As I mentioned earlier, we absolutely must reinforce our manufacturing supply chain for PPE and other critical items. But Christine, I've talked long enough. Did you want to add anything?
I just truly appreciate your fight for us to get what we need to keep the frontline staff safe. These are folks who are leaving their family every day. And at Emerson, I've told our team it's our top priority to make sure our frontline caregivers are protected. And I've really appreciated your response to that, because to this point, we've been able to do that, and we'll continue to do so with your support and your advocacy for us in Washington. So thank you, and we'll keep you posted as we do every day.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, Jocelyn B. from Drake sent us this question. My husband and I are both independent contractors in Westford, owning our own businesses, single-member LLCs. What provisions are in the new COVID-19 legislation to protect independent contractors? We don't have employees, we don't need loans, but we're already losing business with no end in sight. We don't get paid sick leave or vacation, and any provisions for employees at businesses will not help us. We are getting very concerned for our financial future. Well, Jocelyn, you and your husband sound a lot like my husband and me before I ran for office. Recognizing that you say you don't need a loan, I would just like to share with the listeners that independent contractors are actually eligible for the Paycheck Protection Program, which is the SBA's loan guarantee program that offers loan forgiveness for up to 8 weeks of payroll for eligible small businesses, as well as the economic injury disaster loan and economic injury grants, as I mentioned in response to that question from Chandra a few minutes back. That's the $10,000 grant, which doesn't require repayment. Jocelyn, you may be interested in the new Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. This is a new federally funded unemployment compensation program specifically designed to provide benefits to independent contractors and others who are ineligible for regular unemployment benefits. Additionally, in the second stimulus, we enacted a provision to ensure that those who are self-employed, like independent contractors, are eligible for refundable tax credits for the cost of payroll. So self-employed individuals who receive the credit can use that credit against estimated income tax payments. Alternatively, it could be received as a refund after the end of the tax year. So thank you for your question, Jocelyn. I hope it helps. My very best to you and your husband. Okay, Christine, this next question is right in your domain. Scott D. from Lowell asks, how can we get to identifying, tracking, and notifying the public of when and where they might have been exposed? Also, when will we be able to test everyone who is sick with symptoms for COVID-19 like we do for the flu?
So Scott, that's a great question. And about 3 weeks ago, when we were very early on in this pandemic, it was easy to identify someone who was positive and then trace back their steps as to who they might have been in touch with, where they might have gone. Unfortunately, as the cases have ramped up, we know probably at this point that more than 50% of the population in Massachusetts is probably COVID-19 positive. Some people will never experience symptoms and others might. So how I would approach it is when you see someone, just expect that they're COVID-19 positive and really employ all those things we talked about earlier to protect yourself and to protect your family or anyone you may come in contact with. It can't be underscored how important it is that if we follow these guidelines, washing our hands, social distancing, staying in, if we follow those things, then we're going to, as they say, flatten the curve. And what they mean by that is that we're going to reduce the number of active cases that we have because we're not in contact with people. This particular virus spreads very quickly. It's airborne, and now they're saying you can get it just from being close to someone and breathing in the droplets that the infected person may have. So, using those techniques will be very important in those strategies for making sure that you protect yourself. We are longing for the day, and it's coming soon, I'm sure of it, when we'll be able to test everyone with a rapid test, just like we do for the flu and for strep throat. Many innovators have things that are in testing now, and we hope that there'll be a 5 or 10 minute turnaround to some of the upcoming tests. They do have to go through getting many approvals for that, so we'll keep you posted. In the short term, we're using the valuable tests we have for first responders and frontline staff because we need to make sure that they do not have COVID-19 because they're going to be caring for patients, and we definitely don't want our first responders or frontline staff to be passing the virus along. So stay tuned. We will keep you updated on when a test is available.
Great, thank you. I'll take this next one. It's from Robin F., and she asks, how can we best help each other while staying separated? Oh, Robin, it's a great question. I mean, we're all affected by the coronavirus pandemic, and in these trying times, it's more important than ever to protect vulnerable populations and support and uplift one another while sticking to the practice of social distancing. We are all going to have to adjust our behavior and look out for one another. Everyone, myself included, we're constantly bombarded, article after article, about the shortage of test kits, the bottleneck in manufacturing supplies, the rising number of confirmed COVID-19 cases, and so on and so forth. But those news stories paint only part of the picture, right? I mean, from companies donating masks and ventilators to hospitals, to everyday people helping deliver groceries and medications to their neighbors, we've seen countless examples of people doing the right thing during an extraordinarily challenging time. And Christine gave many examples of that in her open of what she has seen, how she has seen the community rally around Emerson Hospital. You know, I think about older immune-compromised people like my dad. He has MS, and he's especially high risk, and he has to limit exposure to COVID-19 by staying at home. I mean, we just do not let him out. And I think he finally understands and has internalized that. But, you know, if you're healthy and you're able, I would encourage you to look after your neighbors and loved ones who might be struggling, to run even the simplest of errands and leave packages outside the door. That's what my sisters and I are doing for, you know, my parents. I spoke to several councils on aging across the district this week who still have kitchens open to prepare meals for seniors across their respective communities. And they're always looking for younger, healthy volunteers to help deliver those meals. You know, my office this week started assembling care packages for a few senior homes that can't accept visitors and need to keep their patients' morale lifted. So I know that social distancing and orders to stay home may make people feel disconnected and helpless during a very uncertain time. But I do believe it's also when a community comes together and it shows its strength and spirit. So from the smallest of actions like lending a helping hand to a neighbor, to donating to your local food bank or hospital, or ordering takeout to support a small restaurant in your town, we truly all can make a difference. Okay, we have a couple more, and this question in particular is so important. It's from Rob Z. in Lancaster. Can you and your guest provide guidance or references to ways in which we can maintain our mental health during these challenging times? So I want to toss this question over to Christine first, because Emerson Hospital really leans into its wellness programs. Do you have any recommendations or guidance to share with Rob?
Absolutely. First, remember that no one is immune to the toll that this pandemic can take. We're a very social society. People are used to going out and interacting, and many of us have had to alter how we interact both with our families and in the workplace, if you're still in the workplace, and many people are working at home. And to be honest, I do think that it is really important to acknowledge that this can wear on us every day. I know for myself, I'm not used to having my daughter who's in college home. And while it's great to see her, let's just say there's a lot more dishes to wash and a lot more activity in the kitchen. And so, you know,
Yep.
we all are experiencing changes in our lives. But there are some things you can do. And I think we have to look at this as we will get through this. There will be life on the other side. And so take this time, which whoever tells you to stay home and work. So, you know, let's try to have some fun with it. So try to get outside every day. There's something about fresh air and sunshine that has a way of sort of awakening you and really being grateful that we're in a place where we can do that we can get some exercise, take a walk. Remember your social distancing, but if you have a pet, I know my dog, I don't know what's going to happen when we all get back to work because the dog loves everyone being home all the time. FaceTime a friend, call a friend. Who talks on the phone anymore? My kids are like, Mom, I'm like, why don't you try making a phone call? We've experienced Zoom. Now, all I can say is you have to make sure you look good when you do Zoom. So a conference call sometimes is better depending on if you're having a bad hair day or not. But try to spend more time with your family and your friends connecting on social media. Try a new app. I happen to have discovered the Calm app in these stressful times, and it's a really great app that you can download and spend some peaceful time. My girls taught me how to use Spotify. Okay, I'm sorry, but everyone may know how to use that one. But I have played songs, I won't even tell you from what era, and we decided to have a dance-off. Okay, my dancing skills aren't quite what they were 20 years ago, but we had a lot of laughs, and it was a way of sort of bringing together our family and really trying to make the most of a situation. Everyone has a pile of recipes that they tear out of magazines, that they print off, that they want to try. You know what? Try your hand at baking or cooking, something that you've been meaning to do for a long time. So, and don't be afraid to reach out to your primary care doctor or therapist or someone if you really do feel like this is becoming overwhelming. This is a really important thing to remember. It's okay to ask for help. I know at our hospital we're here for you if you need us, and it's really important to recognize that these are not normal times and that we will work together to get through this. So I hope I've given you some good ideas of some things to do. I hope you'll also try to get plenty of sleep. What better time than now to catch up on your sleep, to get healthy, to binge watch some of your favorite shows on Netflix or Primetime or Hulu, and share those. I know where I work, we're always talking about what shows we're watching. I get some of my best ideas. And hey, how about reading a book? Does anyone read a book anymore? And there's a lot of good apps if you can't put your tablet down that you can read a book on your tablet. Personally, I like to pick the feel of a book in my hand, but try something new and different, and be sure to let us know how it goes. And if you have any great suggestions, send them to the Emerson website. We'd love to hear what you're doing.
Oh, that was fabulous, Christine. That was the most comprehensive list of things to do to keep busy. I don't think I have anything to add to that. Thank you so much. I'm definitely going to take a few of those suggestions with me. The one thing that I will, and I remember employing this during, right after 9/11, is you have to take breaks from watching, reading, or listening to news stories. Hearing about the pandemic repeatedly can just be stressful and upsetting. So I think you turn off CNN or Fox News or MSNBC, whatever whatever it's like on in the background, and do definitely listen to music, meditate, just pull out that New Year's resolution list that we all sort of forget about and give up on at the end of January, and get those healthy habits. Use this time to deploy those healthy habits. So I think this question is this next question, Christine, is probably also best answered by you, and it's from Rob G. When do you think this stay-at-home order will end? What is the best public health advice, irrespective of the economic consequences? So I know that's a two-part question, but any sort of prediction on when this stay-at-home order will end?
So I don't have a crystal ball, but I, as a longtime nurse and someone who cares deeply about the health of our community, I don't think that you can put a price on everyone's public health and our individual health. So in my mind, however long it takes for us to make sure that people are safe, to go back to school, to go back to work, to hugging each other when we see each other on the street, is when I believe the stay-at-home order should come to an end. And I think that we need to put people's health before everything else. The economy will eventually bounce back, but if we don't take the strict measures that we need to now, this will continue a lot longer than it otherwise would. So I think we'll have to see what the experts say, but in God we trust. Everyone must use the data. We'll have to watch how many people are COVID positive, how many people end up hospitalized, and how many people may die as a result of this crisis before we can really determine when the order will come to an end. So my best public health advice is stay home, wash your hands, social distance, try to have some fun with this, try something new, and we'll get through this sooner rather than later if we do that.
Thank you, Christine. It is true. I mean, the evidence is going to guide those decisions around stay-at-home orders. And, you know, I think it's paramount that we look and we have that data guide that decision making. In terms, you know, one thing that I often, you know, sometimes when folks talk about the packages that are being passed down in Washington, they'll refer to them as stimulus packages. And I'm really diligent about correcting people around, we're in a healthcare crisis. We're in a public health crisis. That's paramount, right? Ensuring that people are healthy, ensuring that people are safe. That is job number one, right? You don't have consumer confidence if people are sick or if people are worried about their health. And so everything that we're doing up till now is addressing the public health pandemic that we have, that we're in the midst of. And we're trying to keep people afloat as that happens, right? In order to confront the public health crisis, people have to stay home from work. You know, people, their businesses are closing because we've never seen demand collapse quite the way it has right now. We are going to stimulate the economy once we're through the health crisis and once we have consumer confidence back and once people are able to go back out and dine in restaurants and shop in their local stores and go grocery shopping at a clip that they're used to. And so I think what's most important right now is that the priority is the health of our families, of our seniors, of our workers, and ensuring that and giving confidence that we're not going to let our small businesses fail. We're going to keep people afloat during this really difficult time. And then once we're through the health aspect, we're going to stimulate our economy. And so I kind of think about it sequentially like that so that folks can, you know, sort of manage their own expectations around, you know, what happens when. So look, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for tonight. I want to thank Christine Schuster for sharing so much vital information with us. I mean, she is on the front line each and every day, and for that we are so grateful. And I want to thank everyone for dialing in and committing yourself to staying informed. For an easy way to stay updated on the federal and state response, as well as information on future Tele-Town halls and events, please continue to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. It's at Rep. Lori Trahan. And also visit our website. It's trahan.house.gov. And if you want to visit our resource page, which has all the up-to-minute resources that are important to your family and small business, it's trahan.house.gov/COVID-19. I urge you all to stay home, especially these next 2 weeks. As Christine said, you know, wash your hands, disinfect your surfaces, check in on each other virtually or by phone, but most importantly, remember that we're all in this together. So thank you again, and stay safe and healthy.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you, Congresswoman.
Thank you. Good night.